There we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 9th of October. 9th of October, it's our Zoomcast series. Today, we're going to talk about reducing catastrophic drug claims with effective risk mitigation strategies. Special guest joining us today to help us with this is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Dave Wojcik from Claim Secure. He is in the house. He will be presenting some things that they have found at Claim Secure and helped us and our clients and our advisors out a great deal. So we wanted to share the experience with you. As well as that, for signing up for today, you will receive a CE credit. Mike Ignatz, I don't know if Mike's here yet. Haven't seen him, but Mike Ignatz will be sending you a CE credit for participating. You'll be signed up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter, and you'll get a really short survey. And one of the things that we've got feedback from you is they wanted to see the session updated and repeated because it's just so valuable. So again, we want to thank Dave Wojcik from Claim Secure that will be joining us today. Here from the Benefits Trust, myself, Lindsay Gibson, Jordan Balhose is in the house, Rob Crowder, and there's Kerry Lane. And I'm not sure where Mike is right now. I haven't seen him, but that's just the way it goes. He should be on any moment. If you have a question today, just raise your hand raise your little hand emoji and we'll get to you, or put it in the chat box so everybody can see, and one of the team from the Benefits Trust will answer that question. And if you've got your camera and you can put it on, we'd greatly appreciate it, because when we set up these Zoomcasts originally, it wasn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being in a room where everybody gets smarter. And that's what we really want to achieve today. This is, true CE. A true CE session, so we want everybody to get smarter that's participating today. Joining us today as well, and I saw his name earlier, and I saw him is Lawrence Geller, and he's somewhere on the screen here. Lawrence, can you put on your screen for a sec? Lawrence, can you talk really quickly about for advisors only, and also who we've got coming up this week on the Masters of Insurance, because these are just extraordinary opportunities that Lawrence, out of the goodness of his heart, has created the Masters of Insurance. And Lawrence, I can't thank you enough because it is just such a wonderful session and series. So Lawrence, if you could talk about that real quick.
Thank you. Well, For Advisors Only was started in July 2020 as an industry board for discussion about things of interest to people in insurance, where people could answer or ask questions and have them answered. Generally, they're answered off list, but almost every question is answered almost immediately. Over the years, we've done webinars on things like making compliance profitable. And now we've decided that it's time to interview everyone who, like Rob Crowder, who we consider to be a master of insurance, so that for posterity, their information, their knowledge, their experience will be available. The idea is that when people start in the business, there's no longer a branch office where you can walk down the hall at 7 o'clock in the morning and ask somebody with 40 years experience or 50 years experience what happened yesterday. When you're a new agent, you just don't have any idea. And over the years, I've observed that every successful insurance agent has succeeded differently, even if they're in the same field. And that's what makes the sale and servicing of insurance one of the best careers that I can imagine. And since it's possible to become a success in our business with diligence, integrity, and experience, the webinar series is intended to prove that, and that any person can succeed with time and hard, thoughtful work by choosing a field that fits them well and that suits their abilities.
And these are every Thursday. Who do you have on tomorrow, real quick?
Sandy Pollock is next week.
Yeah.
Or is this week, this Thursday. Next week is Morty Sachs.
Legend.
We try to find the best people who we can identify. And if you know of anyone who we should be interviewing, and we haven't interviewed in the 34 sessions so far, please let me know. We're posting them to the Facebook FAO page, For Advisors Only page, which is run by Ken McCoy, slowly. And we're trying to get them watermarked, but essentially this is a one retired agent operation.
Yeah. Anyways, it's a superb sessions. I've been on a number of them, and they're always valuable, and I've picked up some great ideas from each and every one of those sessions. So let me share my screen here, and let's go through today's slides, and let's get started. So again, we're talking about reducing catastrophic drug claims with effective risk mitigation strategies. So again, if you've got your camera, you can put it on. That would be fantastic. Oops, no, that's not what I want. I want this. Oh, why isn't this working? There we go. So our agenda today is we want to talk about who is protected from effective drug management. When and where do you use drug management or drug cost management and effective plan design? What is drug cost management? Reporting and taxation, of course, we have to include to be CE credit eligible. Case studies and, of course, question answers and discussions. And again, it's about being in a room where everybody gets smarter. Let's just talk about Ontario right now. Ontario is a vibrant place to do business. I'm downtown right now, and I can still see lots of cranes. There are more than 440,000 businesses in Ontario with less than 100 full-time employees. Toronto still to this day has more cranes than most U.S. cities combined, or all U.S. cities combined. Doug Ford was talking about that recently on the news, and it's still true. It's still true today. And it's still a vibrant place to work. I'm seeing some industry slowdowns, but in the tech industry, but it's certainly vibrant. I know Chris Gorey's on the call and does a lot of work in the tech space. But Chris, are you finding that as well?
Absolutely, Rob. I've had a couple of companies who have shut down because they couldn't raise any more funding. I've had some other companies go from 130 staff down to 80 staff because of layoffs. So absolutely seeing a downturn because they can't raise more funding.
Yeah, so the tech industry is slowing down a bit, but I still see a lot of business being done out there. And quite frankly, I don't know anybody that's really unemployed right now. Everybody that I know is certainly working. A little bit of a disclaimer. Hold a second, am I in the right? Hold on, I just want to. Yes, okay. Pardon me. A little bit of a disclaimer. The Benefits Trust started on January 1st, 1994, so we've been around for quite some time. Our target market was really advisors like you with clients that have fewer than 100 employees. And we do deal in a lot of cases that are larger than that, but our target market is in that area because, quite frankly, there's 440,000 businesses in that area. We're certainly not restricted to do business with less than 100 employees, but we certainly do lots of business with larger clients. These are our views and our opinions, and I'm happy to. I love talking to smart people that disagree and want to change or hopefully change my opinion, depending on if it makes sense. And I was thinking about this when we were putting these presentations together. In my 30+ year career, I've easily had well over 10,000 sales meetings in this space, and this is not a commercial for the Benefits Trust. It's about drug cost management. But I just wanted to sort of give you an idea of where we're coming from. So who is protected from drug cost management? Drug cost management is critically important today when we look at benefit plans. You can buy drugs that are easily $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year. And when you've got a benefit plan and all of a sudden, costs are realized because of large claims, it can cause a great deal of problem if it's not dealt with appropriately. So when we're talking about cost management, who's protected from cost management? Well, employers are certainly protected, and they're especially employers who are risk averse of rising costs, but also employees. Employees are protected in the long run. Some employees look at this as a reduction of benefits potentially, or a restriction on benefits, or a change in procedures. But ultimately, they're protected in the long run because if it's done right, because it's about continuing the benefit plan into perpetuity. So both are protected, but in order to understand if it's right for an employee to talk about drug cost management, it's important to know where the client is going. And when we think about benefits and we think about our prospects and we think about our clients, it's not what we think it's important, it's about them. It's about them. And you've got to know where your client is going in order to help them. And I think the best way to do that is to ask future-based questions. And the best question that I've ever found is from Dan Sullivan from the Strategic Coach. And it's quite simple. If we were meeting here 3 years from now and you were looking back over those 3 years, Mr. Client, Mrs. Prospect, what has to have happened for you to say it's been the best 3 years of your life? And they're going to tell you all sorts of things, but it's not about you, it's about them. And they're going to tell you all sorts of things. And it's going to give you a roadmap of where they're going. It's going to be clear. It's going to be concise. It's going to be specific. They're going to tell you if they're going to grow and how they're going to grow and where they're going to grow. whether they're going to tell you whether they might be selling their business or how quick they're going to be selling their business, whether they're going to merge with another company potentially or enter into new markets or new products. But they're going to give you also a sense of their risk tolerance level and their risk tolerance temperature in this discussion. But it's about them and giving them that clear roadmap. In a couple of weeks, on October 24th, I believe, my wife and I are going to France. Right, we're going to France for a couple of days on vacation, and we're going to tour around and see different things and go to the Champagne region and do a number of other things. But, you know, if I said I'm going on vacation in a couple of weeks and then, you know, my travel agent starts giving me ideas about, you know, Hawaii, it's not, and excursions to do in Hawaii, it's not going to do me any good because she didn't ask where we're going. We're going to France, and that's where we want to go, and we want excursions and things to do and things to see in France. So you got to ask those questions, and you got to ask those future-based questions to see where the client is going. And that's where you can add value and how you can help them. So what is drug cost management? When we think about drug cost management in the simplest form possible, plan maximums. There's an idea of drug cost management. Great, we're going to limit prescription drugs to $1,000, or we're going to limit reimbursement on prescription drugs to $10,000, or whatever the amount is. You know, managed formularies. That's one of the things that we really want to highlight today, because what Claim Secure has done, in my opinion, is just absolutely brilliant for both the employer and the employee. Coinsurance is a management tool for drug cost management. Have the employee have some skin in the game and let them pay. That reduces the employer's cost potentially, but also, you know, you can use the employee to pay for part of it. Dispensing fee maximums. Again, a small amount, but every bit helps. Per prescription deductibles, all sorts of things. But really, what we want to focus on today when we're talking about drug cost management is managed formularies. So why is this important? You know, why is drug cost management and protection effective in plan design? Well, we need to spread the risk. The fact of the matter is, in Canada, as I mentioned, 440,000 businesses have less than 100 full-time employees. If somebody has you know, if a client or an employee of a client or a family member of a client and has 20 employees, for example, and they get a $200,000 claim, they're probably not even spending $200,000 on their whole benefit plan. So all of a sudden that can just throw everything out of whack. So it's about spreading the risks. So small groups, you know, don't necessarily have to absorb the impact of large drug claims. You know, as well as this, we want the group plan to continue into perpetuity. We mentioned that before, but it's so important. We want the plan to be able to continue into perpetuity. If, you know, our employees, we've got a benefit plan for our employees, and we've got, you know, 30 some odd employees, but if all of a sudden we have a $500,000 claim or a $200,000 claim, yeah, you know what? The future of the plan may be in jeopardy. So we want to make sure that we've got the right coverage in place so it continues into perpetuity for the other 34 employees that aren't affected by this. And as I say, pro tip, this is a great prospecting questions, because a lot of advisors don't talk about this, or they don't necessarily lead with this, but I think it's one of the most important things to lead with. So it's a great prospecting thing. I know that there are a number of fully pooled, quote unquote, programs on the market for really small groups. There's a number of these fully pooled programs. I know Dave Patriarch of CGIB and Mainstay Insurance have developed one called the CHIP program. It's something you should look into. Also visit cgib.ca. If you're not a member, it's important to be a member. But what I found with a lot of these fully insured plans is everything runs great until they don't. You know, all of a sudden you've got a really bad claim or a really high claim in a small group. Yeah, it's fully pooled till it isn't, and costs continue to rise. So it's important to understand the protection and in this case today, managed formularies, how they can play a role regardless of the size of the group that you're dealing with. So really, I want to, and I promised 10:15, Dave, so we're right at 10:14. I'd like to introduce Dave Wojcik, and I apologize, Dave. I just realized that I've spelled your name incorrectly. The second C is not necessary. It's just an added bonus for you today. So I apologize on that. But Dave and I have known each other for 30 plus years. He's been with Claim Secure for the majority of his career. And he is vice president of sales, has national responsibilities. And we're really excited for Dave to join us today, because he's going to share a great deal of wisdom, as well as some numbers with you on how the Formulary Protect and Formulary Protect Plus have helped so many Canadian clients. By the way, this is all of these formularies that we're going to be talking about. We've got them in our toolbox, and we are able to put these in place for all of your clients as well. So I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Wojcik and take it from there. Dave, welcome. Hey, let's give Dave a warm welcome. Welcome, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've known Robert so long that I used to have hair when I first met him.
You and me both.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here today, and look forward to presenting. If I can go to the next slide, please. When I was setting up this presentation, when we're talking about Formulary Protect, I wanted to give you a presentation that will allow you to use practically in prospecting or dealing with current client situations. So I actually set up a little bit of a case study, and it will reinforce, because it has some numbers, it'll reinforce some of Robert's comments both before and after my presentation. We'll also sort of just run over the traditional solutions that you have as advisors, and then we'll talk more specifically about Formulary Protect and the service called Coverage Navigation, which looks for financial assistance for individuals who the plan does not cover. And then we'll talk specifically about that plan member experience. I'm going to break it down into, if you have a group right now and you want to move over to Formulary Protect, how do we transition the members so that there's no loss of coverage to them? And also what happens later down the road if there's a new patient start. Then I'm going to actually show you savings results. We started the program in 2016, and I have data up to January 2024. So you'll see the success rate we've had. And then I'll also talk a little bit about what kind of support we can give you as advisors. So the specialty drug market, and if you will, specialty drugs are defined as any drug that is greater than $10,000. This slide sort of outlines what's been happening in the marketplace. These specialty drugs started coming out in 2005, and back then we used to call them biologics, and that's how they started getting over $10,000 because of the difficulty in manufacturing them. And the pharma companies quickly picked up on that, and now they call everything specialty drugs. As a matter of fact, 50% of all drugs that have been approved by Health Canada in the last 2 years have been for specialty drugs, so drugs over 10,000. So we're seeing a huge increase in the number of DINs. We're also seeing that the range of these drugs, the actual cost of these drugs, has increased significantly. And I have there in 2024, that's $2 million, sort of the high water mark. I was just doing some research in preparation for this meeting, and I came across a new drug that was launched approved by the FDA in the United States called Lemmaldi, and it's for a disease called metachromatic leukodystrophy. It's a rare disease, but its price tag is 4.25 million American. So if you just do some simple math, it's about $5.5 million Canadian. Now, it's a recessive gene mutation that happens. 1 in 100 people actually have this mutation. And if 2 of these people get together and they have a child, there's about a 25% chance that the child will be impacted and have this disease. So although it's rare, it is out there. But you can imagine if you had a drug of that cost, it would literally cripple the drug program. I know there's insured drug programs. I know there's stop loss. But when you have a drug at that level, you will never be able to market the program, and you will be forever holding on tightly during your renewal discussions with the carrier. So the other challenge I have with what's happening in the marketplace is that these drugs used to only be for tertiary health conditions or rare health conditions. Now they're starting to happen in more common health conditions such as psoriasis and asthma. And the other issue I see is as these new drugs such as this Lemmaldi come out, they are now going to come into an unsatisfied market. There's no good solutions for this particular disease. So when it does come out, there may be a bolus of people wanting the medications. Next slide. So I thought I'd take you through a little bit of a case study in my presentation, and I just affectionately called this case study HELP. And this is hopefully it's a prospect that you've come across, but more than likely it's going to be one of your clients. And this is a group that we came across recently. And you can see here that I asked for the top 10 DIN list, and all of them were specialty drugs. So I immediately asked for the top 25, but there's a number of high cost drugs here that need to find a solution for.
Dave, how big is this group?
It was 230 lives, I believe.
Yeah, great.
Might have been 330. It's one of the 230 or 330. Anyway, so here you are. You're a broker, and you're saying, okay, what do we do here? What are our choices? And in this situation, we're going to assume it's a client. So your first choice, if you go down, is you go back to the carrier and try to negotiate. This group had a $15,000 stop loss, and their current stop loss rate was around 21.9%, and their renewal came up around 25%, slightly higher than that. So that's one option you have, and you can try to get them down lower, but you're still going to be into the 21 or 22% range. You can go and market it, and if you have a top 10 DIN list like this to the market, you're not going to get a lot of excitement around the market. This particular group was marketed to 4 other carriers, all 3 of the big 3, and one and 2 others, the incumbent and the other one. So it's four plus the incumbent, and only 2 of them responded of the 4 new ones. And both of those had stop loss rates in or around the current stop loss price. So then what else you can put in place? Robert mentioned it. You can put a drug cap in place. The challenge I have with the drug cap is you're immediately telling every one of your employees that we're not covering your drug. Remember, these drugs are in excess of $10,000. We're just going to tease you a bit because we're going to cover the first 5 until you get on it and get going. And then you're going to have to find financial assistance for the rest of it. So what happens if you're really quite good at negotiating the Trillium program, you might be able to go over to Trillium, and then you have to ping pong back and forth or yo-yo back and forth between the Trillium program back to your next year back to your private plan and then back to Trillium. So the challenge I have with the $5,000 cap is if you have a specialty drug, you immediately get to that $5,000 cap, and now none of your drugs are covered. So there's collateral damage associated with the drug cap. So what's our solution? Well, our solution is called Formulary Protect, and it basically says if your problem is the specialty drugs, not all the other drugs, but the specialty drugs, then let's find a solution that is very specific to address that issue. So next slide. So you really have our Formulary Protect is trying to satisfy 2 financial objectives. In this case study, the immediate need is to try to alleviate the cost of all those medications that were on that specialty drug list. And that would be the ideal situation because that represented in this situation a little over 40 or 45% of the overall cost of the drugs. And the second part is really risk management. Cost management up front, risk management basically says that on a go-forward basis, how are we going to mitigate the exposure we have of these high-cost drugs, knowing that they're coming out every year from this point forward, and it's not about if we're going to have one of these medications, it's when and how often. Next slide. So the Formulary Protect really is, how do we do it? Well, we're trying to remove these, we look at removing these specialty drugs. So we have a formulary, we find out all the DINs that are over 10,000, and we remove them. And it sounds like a radical move because we know how good these medications are to help people out. But you have clients out there that are saying, I'm in the business of making a profit selling widgets. I'm not in the business of paying for high cost drugs on a benefit program. I have a budget for my benefits and it's not unlimited. And it's certainly, I don't want to take 30 or 40 or 50% hikes on my renewals. So we remove all these specialty drugs. And then by doing that, we need to find a home for them. And we also indemnify the plan from paying for any future medications. Next slide. So why does it work? It works because we bolted on this service called Coverage Navigation Services. And this is a team that we have at Claim Secure of our clinical pharmacists and clinical assistants. And they have three main objectives to help the member. First of all, we try to find alternative funding. So we look at the spousal plan, the provincial plans, and the patient assistance programs with the pharmaceutical manufacturers. And you immediately realize, because we're talking about provincial drug plans, this program does not work in the province of Quebec because of RAMQ requirements. So if you have clients that are heavily in Quebec, probably not a good program for you. But if you have a couple of people in Quebec, we'd have to put them in a different division with an open formulary. Sorry, if you go back, please.
Sorry.
So the goal here is to try to find alternative fundings, and sometimes we use 2 or 3 of these sources. And it really works well if you ever have a plan design that has 80% coverage. So you have a 20% copay for the members themselves. When you have these high cost drugs, if you start finding an alternative funding arrangement and they remove that 20% copay, it really works out for the members in this situation. If you have 100% coverage, then we also try to look at the manufacturers to pick up some of the deductibles that are required from the provincial plan. So it's a combination. The second objective we have is with the we help them with the application process. We know these patients or members don't necessarily know how to navigate the gauntlet of getting applications and funding. So we help them with the application. We help them, give them their drug history, and we give them a letter, and we wrap it up in a nice package. So when it goes to the adjudicators at the province, they know that that file is complete. And the final part we also get involved with is simply the advocacy. So the speaking to the provincial adjudicators, speaking to the pharmaceutical companies, and dealing with any of their physician specialists who are managing their disease to try to make sure that we have all the information we need. Next slide. So how do we deal with the transition? Now you have one of your groups, you've talked to them about Formulary Protect, you got me involved, or Rob involved in helping them understand how it works. What do we do with those individuals who are already in these medications? Well, first of all, we want to identify them, and we'll have a file that will get downloaded to us from the previous carrier, identifying who those individuals are, and we'll actually reach out and send them a welcome package, get their consent to help advocate for them, and then work through the objectives that our coverage navigation service has. And we will continually following up and communicating with that individual member, telling them how we're doing with finding financial assistance. Next slide. Go back one slide. Sorry. One thing I do want to mention is when we're transitioning a group, even though we have Formulary Protect in now and we don't cover any of the high cost drugs, if we run into a situation during this onboarding of an existing group where we can't find a solution for any one individual, they are allowed to come back on the plan, and we can cover that in on an exceptional basis and not be offside with the province. Okay, you can't do that later on with new patient starts, but you can do that during transition so that there's a continuity of care. So no matter what, no individual is going to be negatively selected against. Next slide. We also have a process. If you're down the line, say 2, 3, 4 years, you have Formulary Protect in place. Somebody is some patient or some member or dependent is a new patient start. They're already told by the individual specialist that you may or may not be covered. You check into it. They find out we're not. The company says we've hired coverage navigation services to help find you alternative funding, and we engage that member at that point and try to help them find alternative funding. Next slide. So the results that we have, if I'll just steer your eye to the bottom right, you'll see 94% success rate. So let's put that in perspective. About 1 to 1.5% of your claims will be for specialty drugs over 10,000, and we're 94% successful at finding an alternative funding. Not 100% successful, not a perfect plan, but pretty darn close. So the question is, what happens for that, excuse me, that 6% that you're not able to find a solution for? What happens then? This is sort of the $1 million question you got to ask your client. You say, are you comfortable protecting your plan against high cost drugs by putting this formulary in place, knowing that you may have to look one of your staff in the eyes and say, Unfortunately, we do not cover this medication and we can't find financial assistance for you. If the answer is no, I can't do that, then this optional formulary is probably not for you. But if you feel that the upside of mitigating all risk of having one of these medications being prescribed on your plan and the costs associated with that, if you're able to have that challenging conversation, then this is a great program. And we have over 5,800 clients. We put on 60 new groups every month, if you do the math. It's by far the best or the most successful launch of a product we've ever had in our history of our company, and it continues to be that way. If anything, it's gaining more momentum. So we're seeing more advisors and more advisors going to this solution. And Rob has used this solution all the time with his benefits trust groups. He finds that it helps out, and you can make an argument that stop loss is maybe even negotiable whether you need it or not. So you can see by province how we find assistance. It could be the government, it could be the pharma companies, it could be the spousal coverage, or it could be a combination thereof. In Ontario, it is, again, roughly about 94-95% successful. Next slide. For you as advisors, if you run into a situation where you're prospecting a decent sized client or you have a client that needs a solution, if you send us a top 25 DINs to Robert and I will work closely on analyzing that data to predetermine whether we think we can find a solution on the province for you or find financial assistance. And we'll let you know what that is, and we'll try to give you an idea of what the cost savings can be. We can also, Rob knows that he has my hotline, so if needed, I can always come in and speak to Formulary Protect for you to your client, and that seems to be a very popular avenue, so that you're not expected to try to regurgitate this information into your client. It's just more or less you go in there and say, hey, I got an interesting program that's going to protect you against high cost drugs. Are you interested? If so, I'll bring in Robert and the claims secure to talk to you about it. Next slide. And this is sort of a cost savings analysis. I gave you that case study at the front. This is that result of that case study, but I just trimmed it down to only having 5 of these drugs. And on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see in this situation, there was about $151,000 in savings for these medications. The actual analysis with all the drugs combined was about $250,000. So needless to say, the client is pretty well there and going to be taking this on. They're having some hard discussions internally about whether they'll feel comfortable with this. It's a large group. Next slide. And just finally, I just wanted to show you what the impact has been in us putting this in place. Back in 2012, we were relatively close as far as this really shows us what percentage of our book of business is for specialty drugs versus the industry. And it basically says that we're at 22% of our overall drug costs are for specialty drugs, and the industry is at 33%. So the industry is 50% higher than we are. So this is a material impact that we've been able to make on the cost of managing these high cost drugs. And it's a very specific solution. So it is optional. I do want to remind you, it's not in Quebec, and it's certainly available through the Benefits Trust. Thank you.
Dave, a couple questions for you. Number one, who else is doing this?
There are a few other companies. I think RAM had a program that was sort of more regionally based. There's also People Core had a product called FormuGuard, and Group Health and Group Source out west use it. We're behind the scenes on that one, but I call it the Health Source Plus People Core solution, the one they use FormuGuard. They tried to mimic what we had. We used to do it for them. They went over to TELUS. The challenge is this is not just about taking off DINs off of a drug list, of a formulary, and putting it out there. There's a whole process. There's a whole team that needs to be involved in understanding each one of the pharmaceutical manufacturers and having relationships there to try to get funding from them. It's about understanding each one of the provincial adjudicators and how they best put your applications in. It's about managing and dealing with the members and understanding how that works. And it's just about having years of history of showing that it works. That makes a difference, and understanding the whole member experience. So I think some people are out there trying it. They're not having a lot of success. I can tell you that it's a hard program to duplicate because you have to manage formularies, the formulary, and recognize what's happening in each province, and then have the ability to actually make that formulary work in each province. So
what are the stats off the top of your head? And I'm putting you on the spot here, Dave, but I used to say 1 in 3,000 certs has a, back in the beginning of time, 1 in 3,000 certs has a claim that's over $10,000. How has that number changed?
Well, I don't know the numbers, so thanks for putting me on the spot, but I would suggest to you that because of the range of indications that these drugs now cover, that it would be 1 in something less than 3,000, if that's the number. I don't believe it's gone out, like crazily, because a lot of times it's for these really, ultra rare diseases. But I would just suggest that, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you had clients and plan sponsors that weren't even aware of specialty drugs, or some just stuck their head in the sand and said, it's not going to happen to me because I've never seen one yet. But today, I'd be hard pressed to find a plan sponsor that isn't concerned. They still call them biologics or other things, but I'd be very hard pressed to find a plan sponsor who is not at least sensitive to the cost of these high cost drugs, whether their plan has hit it, or they know somebody who has a situation, or they have a family member on one of these medications.
It's not when, or it's not if, it's when, right, is really the question. One of the things that we've found with the patient navigation system or process or solution is patients that are on these expensive medications and have these somewhat rare diseases. We have not found anybody to be negatively impacted. I'm not talking about the financial side of it, but they're used to talking with professionals about their disease. They're concerned about the management of their disease. They're concerned about the outcome. And with the care navigation system, what we found is that to be a very positive experience. What feedback are you receiving, Dave?
Well, that's exactly it. They think of our coverage navigation service as the white knights coming into town. And that's because they're intimidated by the fact that they may or may not be able to find financial assistance. And the messaging the plan sponsor is saying is, we've hired a group to help you look for financial assistance. And generally speaking, we find a solution for them. So it is good. And we've been to CAGIB meetings where, they've brought in guest speakers who are patients of rare diseases, and they know more about the disease than, almost a specialist does. It seems like they're very in tune with what they're doing, and they're looking for solutions. They like to work with you. But not all of the individuals that come in understand all about their disease. Some are just, at the mercy of their physician. So those are the ones that we spend extra time with, trying to help them and keep in communication with.
Well, it's a wonderful program, Dave, and thanks for sharing. I greatly appreciate it. And we've used it successfully with our advisors in dealing with cases and protecting clients and employees in a number of different spots, and it's worked out famously well. And what I'd like to do is share a couple of case studies that we've had and working with Dave and Claim Secure. This one particular client has 30 locations with about just over 500 employees. Their core plan design included unlimited prescription drug benefits, and then drug claims, just like the example you used. They were having about $350,000 in reoccurring drug claims spread over 5 certificates. So they had a pretty big problem. And the client was very worried about the future sustainability of their benefit plan, because their costs kept on going up. Their stop loss costs kept on going up. Their other costs kept on going up artificially. And they said, what choice do you have? The current advisor said, unless you're going to put a drug cap in, there's nothing you can really do. And the client was not impressed with that particular advisor's advice. And historically, that may have been true. But it's not true today. And all of a sudden you've got these big drug claims. What do you do? Well, the answer is you talk to us. There's an option. And in this particular case, Formulary Protect Plus was implemented, and it's Formulary Protect, and it was implemented, and there were 5 certificates were assured of continued coverage. The assistance was given with the navigation program. There's clear communication throughout the entire process. And after this was completed, these initial 5 certificates were dealt with. The certificate holders and the clients were happy with the process and the results. They needed to be assured that there wasn't going to be an issue, and it was a little bit of a leap of faith, and I don't like to use that word, but it was a process that was described. It was a process that was they had researched, and but you don't know until you try it, and they were very happy with the results. So in this particular case, it was easy to manage since everybody had the same coverage and same plan design. So they weren't saying to those 5 employees, hey, you're getting a reduction in your benefits. Everybody's got the same plan design. The client was able to provide a well-rounded drug plan that included the cost containment measures that they were looking for. The provincial drug benefit programs utilized through Formulary Protect Plus and the patient assistance programs and so on. The drug cost stability has been achieved for those 5 drugs, but also for all future drugs. But the interesting thing is the new advisor's recommendation resulted in a new client relationship. And it was the new advisor that was focusing on this problem. Because they were asking questions about the client's future and where they were going. And this was a noose around their neck. And they focused on this problem and solving their problem in a creative way without just saying, hey, let's put in a drug care max or drug a limit. So this resulted in the new advisor getting an AOR and making this switch happen. So the new advisor was pretty happy because, he really, in this particular case, he really felt positive after the first meeting, and the client was excited, and the other advisor was booted out. Case study number 2. Case study number 2, a business with 105 employees, community-funded social services, a bit of a rural location. The union group was in the process of negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement. The union in this particular case and the client had an extraordinarily positive relationship. You don't often hear that, but in this particular case, they did. They had a very, very positive relationship, and the client shared a lot of information with the union, and the union was very receptive to that sharing of information. And they often worked together on a number of different projects. One of them was budget constraints, because the organization is largely government funded. There's a little bit of community assistance there, but it's really government funded that funds this organization. It's an important service that they provide for this community. And the client wanted better cost control. The management wanted better cost control, and the union also wanted better cost control because they were aware of drug cost implications and rising drug costs, and they wanted plan stability. They wanted to have the plan for their members into perpetuity. They wanted to last a long time. They didn't want the plan to have to be canceled or a drug cap put in place. So what was added was Formulary Protect Plus for both the union and non-union group. Important, both the union and non-union. So again, everybody's got the same benefits. So the management isn't different from the union in this case. And this was put into place really to ensure future plan stability and affordability. The union was in complete agreement of this benefit change, and there was no other changes to the plan design. It was just a change in process. The employees and union members had very little pushback due to no material change in their benefits. Again, it's just the message was a change in process. And again, the union was very happy about this, and it was because of the positive relationship they've had over the years. So as a result of this situation, future drug costs, they didn't have any large claims, but they wanted to make sure that they were protected against them, because it's not a matter of if, it's a question of when. The future drug costs became more stable in their eyes, as well as reality. Similar businesses and unions are now interested in this creative plan. And it serves as a template on other groups that the advisor is pursuing. So it was really interesting because this particular advisor is using this case study and to get meetings with other clients in other communities with very similar businesses, and having a great deal of success in setting up and getting these meetings and getting new clients. So it's the result was very, very positive for this particular advisor. And more importantly, it was very positive for both the union and non-union of this particular group. So just a terrific result. A little bit of a smaller case study here. This is a traditional plan with 37 employees, unlimited prescription drug benefits. Premiums continue to rise. There's one claim over the large amount pooling threshold. The owner has a few long-standing employees that were really important to this particular business owner. You know, the one large claim over the LAP threshold, the large amount pooling threshold, the stop loss threshold, the existing advisor's only comment was, well, this is how plans work. You know, this is why you have it, and it's working, and this is how it works. But one of the things that was interesting, like many business owners, is the business owner really hates paying taxes. But he's one of those particular business owner that, you know, what business owner likes paying taxes? None, but he is really adamant about this, and he hates paying taxes. And this came up in conversation. And, you know, this is how benefit plans work. The business owner is going, there's got to be a better way. I hate paying this much money in taxes. There's got to be a better way. You know, what can happen? And it just didn't sit well. When you tell an entrepreneur they can't do something, or this is the way it works, sometimes they're not happy with that result. In this particular case study, the solution was design a group benefits plan based on year of service. So it's a bit of a plan design shift as well as a protection shift. So it was important that the owners, in this particular case, the owner and the key employees with more than 10 years of service, Formulary Protect Plus was implemented. And employees with less than 10 years of service, just the Formulary Protect was implemented. And Dave, we've talked about Formulary Protect, and I've mentioned here a couple of times on Formulary Protect Plus. Can you just quickly jump in and discuss what the differences are between the two?
Sure, I'll make people's head roll around because it's a little bit challenging. But Formulary Protect, we remove all DINs that are for specialty drugs over 10,000. In Formulary Protect Plus, we remove only those drugs that are over 10,000 that are listed on the provincial formulary. So there are specialty drugs that aren't on the provincial formulary. They would be on our Formulary Protect Plus formulary. That's the difference. So the thought on this one was that, well, if they're not being covered by the province, then they'll be covered by the plan. And that was the initial thought of this. The challenge is that generally speaking, if it's not covered by the province and it is on Formulary Protect, we would go through a special authorization process. And we would have to see that the individual has tried other therapeutic equivalents that are on the province and failed before we'd approve a drug that is on the provincial formulary. Sorry, on the plan. The other issue I have with it is communicating it to the to your plan sponsor. I have a hard enough time, and I've been doing this for 8 years. It's trying to explain to them that you can't afford specialty drugs and they shouldn't be on your plan. You want to mitigate that risk. And then you turn around and say, but this Formulary Protect plan does have some of those medications back on the plan that you would cover. But knowing that the province has already said, we're not covering these medications, probably because they're not cost effective. So to me, you're sort of half on and half off your argument and what you're trying to convince the client. I'm not a big fan of Formulary Protect Plus, but I can tell you it's being sold on more than half of our accounts, half of our situations.
Yeah, in this particular case, they wanted to really, they felt important in the communication to be dealing with those employees that had more than 10 years of service. So they wanted to give them a little something more.
Right. It's worked well. So
it's worked well. The result of this change in their benefit plan, again, it's change in process, but it's change in the benefit plan. The result was the key longstanding employees were recognized. That was something important to the business owner. The future, this is future cost containment with creative ideas, creative plan design. You know, again, they're protecting the future, not the if, but when. The employer is happy with the government programs being utilized to the fullest. You know, this particular employer hates paying taxes, and the advisor showed him a way to transfer the risk to the government. And he goes, "Hey, I'm paying so many dollars in taxes. We want to utilize these programs," and it was a no-brainer for the client to make this decision. The one employee with the large claim was assured of continued coverage. The assistance was given through the care navigation and clear communication again throughout the entire process. And as I've mentioned, everybody that's on one of these large claims that we've had interaction with, they just want help. They just want help with care navigation. And the people that Claim Secure has in place that help with this, they're excellent communicators, they're empathetic, they're very, very quick to respond and have meaningful conversations with these folks to give them that assurance. So the Claim Secure navigation assistant patient care navigation process is incredible. The employee and client is happy with the process and the results, but the advisor, in this particular case, the advisor was a new advisor and had a 15-minute discussion with the client. And it really, in my opinion, hinged around the taking advantage of the government programs that were available, where the other advisor was sitting there going, "Hey, this is how plans work," right? No, it was how do we minimize or how do we maximize the programs that are available, and we link it. Or as Dave said, you know, they've got this engine that helps with that process with the care navigation, which was critical in this particular case. So those are the three case studies. We've got a few minutes left, and we'll go through the rest real quickly, and then we'll come back to, you know, questions and discussions and so on. But tax, accounting, and considerations, why drug cost management is important. One of the things that we do is we report back. We report back on a monthly basis. Every one of our clients, every one of our advisors gets one of these reports for each client on a monthly basis, so they can see exactly where they are. And it's really interesting because, you know, when you look at this report on a monthly basis, you can see if something is trending up really, really quickly. And, you know, we're going to have a discussion before you have a discussion. You as the advisor, we're going to have a discussion before you have a discussion with the client. So you're walking into this discussion with the client. You're saying, "Hey, somebody is you know, something is going to be happening here, and there's this care navigation process, and it works and works well." So as I like to say, the monthly financial reporting is critical. It's important, and you never deliver a bad renewal again. And I hate it. I hate it. It's one of my pet peeves. "Oh, I got a bad renewal. This is going to be really stressful." There's no such thing as a bad renewal if you eliminate surprises. Here we're talking about putting strategies in place so they're never going to have these large drug claims. And we're going to communicate effectively on their budget and how their budget is on a monthly basis. So there aren't going to be any surprises. You're going to eliminate surprises with this report. So you're never going to have a bad renewal. Matter of fact, you're never going to even say bad renewal again. It's I don't know why people do that. I don't know why people say bad renewals. It's just a renewal. It is what it is. So I want to remind everybody, if you thought this was of value, we're going to do it a couple more times on November 20th. We're going to do this a couple more times this month, but we've got some upcoming sessions coming up. We've got Meet the Masters Unscripted and Unplugged. That's coming up on November 20th. That's going to be really exciting. Unscripted and Unplugged. Chris, you're going to be participating in this, and we're going to put you on the hot seat. We're not going to give you the questions that we're going to ask in advance, and we're just going to see what's on your mind. So that's going to be exciting. And then navigating group travel insurance in December, because that's when it becomes really important. So let's stop sharing right now. We've got a few minutes to spare, and we're going to stick around maybe a few minutes after 11 as well. If you want to continue the conversation, but if you want to get your CE credits, you got to stick around till 11. But does anybody have any thoughts, ideas about drug formularies and how they can be used effectively to manage your clients' future costs? Again, we've had some just terrific success. Before it used to be, "Hey, yeah, we got this case, but it's got large drugs." And you're going, "All right, we don't want to talk to you about it." Or now we've got, "Hey, yeah, we want to talk to you about it, and we've got a great solution that's going to make you look fantastic." Any thoughts? Anybody want to share? Any questions of Dave while he's in the house?
Dave, I'm not sure if you saw, but Equitable's also entered the space with their own version of a Formulary Protect. So
Oh, they have? Interesting. Dave, have you seen that? Dave, you're muted
Yeah,
there.
I'm just unmuting myself. Yeah, there seems to be other groups. So thanks, Chris, for mentioning that. Again, it's the challenge is the process behind the whole thing. It's not just putting a formulary without the specialty drugs in there. And we've learned a lot since March of 2016. That's perfected our process. So, it'll be interesting to see their stats. And I'd encourage you, when you do run across somebody who's trying to mirror this program, that you look at their stats. How many groups do you have on? How many cases have you managed? What's the success rate? How are you finding funding? Just do your due diligence. And if they have a program that works fine, then you have more solutions than just the Benefits Trust and we can offer.
Mitzi, you've got a question? Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they have, cost plus as part of their plan, or if they have health spending accounts, how the managed drug formulary works in conjunction with that, or how it affects it, if at all.
Do you mind if I take that one, Rob?
Yeah, please.
It's a great question because it's a touchy question, because you've told the government you're not covering your medications. And then all of a sudden you potentially could be using health spending accounts or cost plus to pick the cost of that up. I believe that's where you're going with this. I would suggest to you that with a health spending account, usually the amounts are immaterial relative to the cost of the medications. So it probably wouldn't raise eyebrows. On a $30,000 drug, you're picking up a couple $1,000s or something. The challenge I think you have is when you look at cost plus. If you're planning to pick up the cost of that medication through cost plus, then you really are saying, I'm going to cover the cost of this drug. And I think that would be totally offside.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I'd try to position it, or I think.
So does that mean that you have to remove cost plus from the company having it? Because I mean, they could be using their cost plus to cover other things rather than that.
Mitzi, you can define the cost plus. It's cost plus for everything but drugs.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's a way that you can still have the cost plus or the health spending account. Can the health spending account be limited the same way?
You've got an adjudicated healthcare spending account in the sense you could set up rules for everything, because a benefit plan is a promise, and how you want to structure that promise is entirely up to the client. Right?
Okay, thanks.
But it's something, it's an important discussion to have with the client. But there's what we found successful is again, you put this Formulary Protect in place, and you put it in place for everybody. Like, you put it in place for everybody, so everybody's got the same benefits. It just works and works smoothly. Other things can be included in cost plus or an addition of a healthcare spending account if you choose. But again, as Dave mentioned, often healthcare spending accounts, the amount is somewhat negligible. It might be $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, but people don't, generally speaking, have a $50,000 healthcare spending account, right? So, hey. Good question, though. Thank you, Mitzi. I appreciate it. And Dave, we really appreciate your help today as well. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and we want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and leadership in this particular space. Before, we didn't have solutions. Now we have proven solutions. So again, before we didn't have solutions when clients had large drug costs and so on. Now we have solutions that are proven to work extraordinarily well. So when you run into a prospect like this and or a client like this, there are solutions that are available in the marketplace. You're going to be signed up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter. It comes out every single month. If you're not receiving that already, tons of valuable information in there. As well as that, your Mike Ignatz is going to send you a CE credit for participating today. You are also going to get a really short survey, 90 seconds, fill it out. Let us know how we did today, how we can do it better tomorrow. And this is something that if you're not talking to your clients about, somebody else will. It's about risk management, and it's about effective plan design, and it's about risk management, effective plan design, and it's about talking about your client's success in their future. And I think that's one of the most critical things. As Lawrence mentioned, session tomorrow, check out For Advisors Only, great Masters of Insurance that's going on. If you're not a member of CGIB, please join. great organization. No, I don't get paid by Lawrence, and no, I don't get paid by Dave. And we'll see you in the future at these sessions. Jordan is going to be reaching out to each and every one of you over the next couple of weeks and to figure out how we can do business together. If we're doing business, thank you. If we're not doing business, we are open for business, and we want your business. We want to take a stab at it. We want to show you what it is that we can do, because we're pretty excited about it. Very recently, according to our friends at Pension and Benefit Monitor magazine, we were just awarded one of the top employers in this industry because we treat our employees well and encourage them to do great things, and they continue to do that. So thank you to Jordan that's on the call, Lindsay, Rob, and Carrie. And we appreciate your time. So we're going to send you that CE credit, and we wish you good selling in the future. We're going to stick around for a few minutes, but we're going to end the meeting now. If you got to take off.